Welcome to Triple Threat, the podcast with Jamel President, where it's good news and good vibes all the time, baby.
When we left Portugal to come play with you in your system, Jamel, it was the best thing for Shane because you pushed him to do other things outside his box.
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Jamel President and on Twitter at President Jamel. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast as I'll be bringing you a new interview every month. Hey, what's up, guys? Just want to drop in for our last episode, Me versus Me, to give another thank you to our guests and to talk about Triple Threat Season 2. In our first season, we focused on the preparation of the student athlete. Our guests gave great information on topics that student athletes need to be successful. We focused on nutrition and information on asthma. We had NCAA Eligibility Center, Barrington Huntley, talked about the registration of high school athletes, the GPA they got to maintain, information about sports agents, a slew of information that athletes need that the NCAA covered in our first season. We also spoke to college coaches, Coach Earl Grant, BJ Mackey, Ben Betts, and they really gave information on what they look for the upcoming student athletes. Also, their trials and tribulations running the waters of becoming a collegiate coach. Those things are very important. We also spoke to a couple of high school coaches and what they expect from the upcoming intermediate middle school age group, how to prepare for that, and their expectations of being high school coaches. We also talked about sex education. Natasha Vissa spoke about the distractions and things that can happen if athletes, male and female, aren't focused on their craft, how parents need to get involved into dealing with athletes and their temptations during that time. What I gather from spending time with these professionals is that hard work works, right? Yes, you get breaks in life, but if you aren't prepared when those times come, you can't capitalize on them. And those things are very important. So we kind of focus on the prevention versus the treatment method when it comes to young student athletes. And again, we really, really appreciate all of our guests for coming on from season 1.
My son, Elijah, some of the changes I've seen with his training that he's applied at home and at school, I will say that he's a lot more conscious about what he's putting into his body, what kinds of food he's eating, pacing himself. He's doing that sort of thing because Coach has him doing a journal. So he's got to record these things and he's got to be honest, and we keep him honest. So that helps a lot because, we've been working on the weight and working on the stamina. So that's been very helpful. And over the course of a few weeks, Elijah's lost about 10 pounds since he's been working with Coach. So that's an amazing change.
Raising a student athlete is just as important as being one. In our second season of Triple Threat, we will focus on the mental stability of the student athlete. I feel like season 2 will help our audience advance their knowledge about student athletes' mental cognition. For example, Focusing on student athletes' mental development will help parents and coaches understand athletes' athletic disadvantages. And what I mean by that is that many coaches see a player and say, well, he doesn't have a motor or he's not aggressive enough. And we kind of just throw those players to the side per se. All right. They might have some skills, but they're not aggressive. They're not dogs. And now we got to look at the mental side of that, of the environment of what causing that or what didn't cause that. So those are things we're kind of focused on moving forward as we get into more of developing the student athlete. What about their ability to focus, and what's the level of their processing capacity? Think about that. How do they adapt to plays and sets? Again, coaches, we've run into players that's really, really talented, right? But they can't figure out the plays. They can't get the plays. So instead of pushing those players to the side, we have to implement some other learning strategies. Maybe they're not learning from standing, just listening. Maybe they need to write the plays down and see it from a visual standpoint. So again, effective coaching involves a lot of different strategic approaches, but we have to know the why. We also talk about IQ. How do we measure a player's intelligence? When we understand a player's IQ and a player's intelligence, then it helps us as coaches put players in better positions to be successful. If I know you can't remember a play, I'm not going to have you in the fourth quarter when it's 10 seconds to go. Because I know your mental capacity. What social factors help them develop through these observations? Do they have a good upbringing as far as being in a good quality recreational environment? Did they had great coaches and teachers to help teach them the game the proper way? Were they in bad environments that causes the IQ not to be developed, right? Causes the body not to grow because of bad nutrition. A lot of things come into play. We got to understand the why. The use of sport resources and understanding these factors can implement early interventions for the student athlete's development, mental development. I think that's very important if we look at things and not just look at it from the athletic side, but the mental side, in addition to the athletic side. It gives us a better picture of how we can approach our athletes. So as a result, we want to increase the importance of athletes' motivation to achieve, right? Increase their goal setting and help implement anxiety reduction techniques that athletes need so much. They call it butterflies, but it's really anxiety. Pre and post regulating emotions, pre and post games. You have a great game. How do you regulate that emotion? You have a bad game. How do you regulate that emotion? So it's a lot of things that we want to talk about and make sure parents in the community understand the total athlete from a mental standpoint a whole lot better.
Interested in skill development because my daughter would like to play high school basketball and possibly college basketball. The expectations are, for Jamel are just to communicate with the player and my daughter and just make her feel, just continue to build her confidence and build her skill set and, support her as she transitions into that high school player. And also then he can provide some support with management of looking at colleges and trying to see what the best fit is for her and supporting on that as well. So I think, that's really a really important thing.
Raising a student athlete is just as important as being one. In closing, We had a tough 18 months dealing with the pandemic. And I hope everyone kept themselves and family safe and will continue to do so. Thanksgiving and Christmas is on its way. Enjoy your family and stay safe. We'll be back next year for season 2 to give you great information as we continue to provide leadership and guidance for your up and coming student athletes. So thanks for engaging and thanks for following. And we see you guys soon. All right? Be right back.
What Jermel is doing with the Day Foundation and the approach he's taking to help develop young athletes, first of all, getting them prepared from the academic standpoint, which, as you know as well as I do, Bobby, that's the most important element, to try to get them to eat healthy, to be able to train properly, to get the proper education, and then hopefully for those who are talented enough to have a chance to move on to perhaps even get a free education by going off to college. But I love what Jermel is doing. It's a wonderful program. Hopefully more people in the community will get behind it, and some of the businesses involved as well to help sponsor this program, because these are the kind of things that every community needs, looking out for the best interest of the youth. The future of this country is in our youth, and everything that we can do to help prepare them better for that is absolutely wonderful. And I can't express adequately enough my admiration and respect for what Jermel is doing, and hopefully he'll get a lot of help from a lot of people.
You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Jermel President, and on Twitter at President Jermel. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast, as I'll be bringing you a new interview every month.
York City.